And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another outstanding installment from very, very high above all the insipid and entirely sophomoric forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday. We have a very busy program today. I'm going to have two guests on today's show. The first one is going to be Mr. David Hill, and he is running for the House of Representatives out of Park County. So we're going to talk to him here, and I think he's at 8:30. And then I'm very excited to talk to Jenna Robinson again. She is the president of the James G. Martin Center, and she's got a new report out about the University of Wyoming. And, this should come as absolutely no surprise whatsoever to anybody, but they're a little bit top-heavy. In fact, they're a lot. Wyoming spends around a little north of 8% of our entire budget on the University of Wyoming. And at the same time that they have an endowment close to $1 billion. So 8% of your money has to go to the University of Wyoming, but they could keep close to $1 billion stashed in the bank. And that is equated to, and when you're using other people's money, you can hire whomever you want. And Jenna Robinson's point is that there is an extraordinary amount of administrative bloat at the university. And if they were to take care of that, what could they do down the road? So we're going to talk to her at 9 o'clock. Should be a fascinating conversation. She's been on the program before. So busy program on today's show. But we begin, my friends, by firing up the counterfeit campfire. You know the one I'm talking about. It's the one that's made to look like a campfire, and really all it is little flashy lights. Fire that up, since, of course, we probably don't want to have a campfire because we'll light the entire state ablaze. And then break out the $50 guitar from Walmart. You're going to need that. And make sure that you find somebody that only knows a couple of campfire tunes, but can't really play them on the guitar, so really it just comes out like strumming. And they can't really carry a tune, except for maybe in a tin bucket, but even so, comes out a little bit raspy. I know, it's hard to imagine. But do all of that, and then we're going to talk about a pledge. You see, the cow pie is all excited about this pledge. And what it is a pledge that we're not going to attack our political enemies. No. We can disagree with them, but we're not going to attack them. And we should pledge because, that's what Jesus would do. Oh, yes, my friends, the Matthew 7:1 crowd is at it again. Now, they didn't come out and use Matthew 7:1, but you can bet that that's coming. Matthew 7:1, of course, is judge not lest ye be judged. And that's the one that this crowd of folks always uses. Jesus wouldn't do that. He said judge not. Except for the rest of the Bible kind of disagrees with that and says, you know, we kind of are required to be fruit inspectors. And even Jesus himself, he wasn't in favor of this whole let's let bygones be bygones and let's not judge anybody. Actually, he said, I didn't come to bring peace, but the sword. So the question is, this little pledge that a very interesting group of people is signing up for, what is it all about? And why is it coming up right now? And why have the proprietors of this little pledge been after lawmakers for weeks trying to get them to sign it? Interesting question. But when you look at the list of people that's involved in this thing, and let me just, let's see here. We want to go there first. Hold on just a second. When you look at the list of people that's involved, it's kind of like the usual suspects. And let's see here. And it doesn't look like, okay, so we're going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, so the screen is going to look a little weird for a minute. Don't worry, I'm on it. Here we go. So here's the list of folks that have signed up for this little pledge. Now, I couldn't get the whole screenshot in there, so Eric Barlow and Megan Felder have also signed up for this. But there's some interesting characters on here. Ogden Driscoll, Marcia Newmiller, Wendy Schuler. Now, there's an interesting one. Elizabeth Bingham. Oh, that was great. I didn't even go get any screenshots of her social media pages, but they're fantastic. Yeah, she pretty much went after just about every member of the Freedom Caucus for, I don't know, ever. So she's an interesting one. Christopher Drzang. Man, he's an interesting communist down in Casper. Lloyd Larson. Yeah. Good one. J.D. Williams, Paul Wink, Bill Winnie, and David Hill is on there, of course. We're going to talk to him about, and I'll ask him a question or two about the pledge. But look at this list, my friends. Isn't it interesting? And if you scroll up, let's see here. I guess I don't have the U.S. Senate candidates on there, but Jimmy Skogard is on there too. But when you look at this list, it's really interesting because most of these people attack their political enemies nonstop. Let me just give you a little look here. So here's a piece from Jimmy Skogard. The Control Caucus, not freedom, not conservative. It's control. Here's one from Augie. This one's kind of funny. The sock puppet. Yeah, that one's great. What about this one? Yeah. And they're all hypocrites. And here's one too from Augie. Yeah, this one's great. This is great. They've destroyed their reputations, destroyed their careers, and potentially placed themselves in criminal jeopardy. And now, like stupid cornered animals, they're throwing everything against the wall to distract. Yeah, so that's Augie. But it's far more interesting than that, my friends, because what this pledge is an attempt to get, and by the way, a lot of the folks that have signed up for this thing, they are the very people that have a closet full of bad stuff, bad votes that they don't want out in the public. And if they could get their political opponents to agree not to attack each other, well, then there's a higher likelihood that all of those scary, ugly skeletons votes won't become public. You know, like all of the ones, I don't know, maybe voting against Wyoming Energy and don't forget the COVID special session. That was a beauty. That's where they derailed every attempt by conservatives to make it so you wouldn't be forced to jab a piece of metal into your arm. Yeah, you remember those people? All we got out of the COVID special session was a gambling bill and some money for a lawsuit. Other than that, we shouldn't worry about employers forcing you to take a vaccine or wear a mask or anything like that. Yeah, most of those people who were legislators then, they would have voted for all that stuff too. But one in particular, one of those individuals is fascinating because when it comes to pledges, you know, he's not exactly that big of a fan. And he doesn't like purity tests either. So first we're going to start with Ogden Driscoll's thoughts on pledges. I know. This is a blast from the past. This is from June 7th of 2021. And let me just, I've got a couple videos for you. Now in there, and let me just set this up for you. So now Speaker of the House, Chip Nyman, at that time was a freshman member of the House of Representatives. And his constituents wanted him to send out a pledge to get all of his colleagues to sign on to working on election reform. And what he was driving at was a runoff election bill. Now, what Chip didn't really realize is none of the people that he was asking to sign this pledge were ever going to sign on to a runoff election bill. In fact, because that's one of the things that guarantees them elections, specifically Ogden Driscoll. Augie has never won an election with a majority of the vote, because he's almost always had a third candidate in there that splits the vote. And I think the closest he ever got was around 40%. All his other elections, they're in the 30s. Okay, so why would he want a runoff election? Well, he didn't. And when Chippy sent out this pledge, it was an amazing display, because the Corporations Committee dressed down Chip Diamond for the better part of 2 hours. And they said a whole bunch of funny stuff, interesting stuff to Chip about why pledges are bad. Here's the first one. This one is Augie lying about the pledge that was sent around. Watch this.
One last, I'm not speaking, but knowing what you just said, I represent the same people you do, plus a few others. I get put in the same corner you do, and I do exactly what you do. 90% of the bills I bring are brought right out of Northeast Wyoming, out of people that talk.
Yeah, sure they are.
So knowing that it was unconstitutional and it wouldn't work because you'd talked to our clerk and you went ahead and sent a pledge out. Why? Why would you put us?
Why would you send a pledge out?
Signing a pledge on a bill that you knew did not work.
Yeah, that's not
That's
true.
where I have a hard time. I talked to you about
Okay,
coming down.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
It wasn't that you would have to sign that, but you would support runoff legislation.
How was that?
Isn't that what it says?
Well, you can
Support
pull it up.
runoff legislation and party affiliation change legislation as presented in 21,
Look at his one answer.
Name
He's
the
like,
bill.
yeah,
It says
that's what it
sign
says.
off on the exact bill.
145.
Done arguing.
Okay.
He's done arguing. Yeah. Well, not really at all. In fact, he went on and on and on. Here's where Augie is asking Chip Diamond to rescind the pledge, because how dare you ask anybody to sign up for any sort of pledge? Here he is. Here's Augie saying pledges. Well, you should rescind the pledge because, well, just listen. Maybe. Here we go.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I appreciate the 515 or 5 hours.
This is right in the
we did
beginning of the
last
meeting.
Thursday together. It's,
I don't mean to
We all
interrupt,
get
but
it.
you slept for most of it down and back, so.
Keep it in straight, though.
absolutely. Very much appreciate your comments, and I think they very much reflect the local thoughts of our people and statewide. I appreciate it. With that being said, are you willing to rescind your pledge that you tried to get us all to sign off on? Because I, for one, didn't sign it, knowing we've been working with the clerks. And
Yeah.
I think it really puts some undue pressure there. And I would like to
Yeah.
see you clarify where you're at on that. I look forward to working with you to get an outcome, but I would like to see you address the pledge.
Yeah, address the pledge, and you should rescind it because it's undue pressure. Well, here's some more of what Augie had to say. You'll love this part. This is why pledges are bad, right? Now, he's one of the people that just signed on to one, but it wasn't that long ago where, and how dare you even think that you should suggest that maybe some legislators sign a pledge. But here's Augie saying that pledges are bad. Watch this.
Let me
And that's not,
whatever. The discussion has started. Senator Driscoll, go ahead.
I'm not going to make it real long.
Yep.
I'm going to start, and I probably shouldn't be doing this right here. It ought to be a different setting. You are one of us.
Did you hear Slithers? That was Senator Slithers right in the background. Augie says, I probably shouldn't be doing this. And you could hear Slithers go, then don't. All right, anyway, let's continue. Here's more of Augie.
You're not an outside group.
You're one of us.
You're not part of a different group.
Yeah.
You are a representative. You're part of a group. And that is not by forcing people to do pledges. That's what outside groups do. What we do is.
That's what
pledge
outside
to
groups do. Uh-huh.
What we can for our constituents. Your speech you gave was dead on. I fall in that category and I fall there well. But what happens on these pledges is exactly where it's at. And I'm not going to put you a whole lot more on the spot, but you just violated your own pledge, Representative. You violated it. Because what happens is we get put in a place and then you can't do what you signed off on, but the same people will come back and they won't do it to you. But I'm going to guarantee you, I'm going to hear in my district, why didn't you sign the pledge?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you why I didn't. Little short story about last time. We had a Second Amendment Preservation Act. You remember the bill? Everybody knew about it. We got pressure. We had people pushing us. By God, sign that. Get on it. And the sponsor was passionate, same as you are. Meant everything in the world to him. Do you know what happened at the end of the day? It was really interesting on the Senate floor. It got amended. And the bill stood. The name that was on the bill, the title was there, the sponsor was there.
Yeah, the title.
And he voted against the bill because it wasn't what he had forced everybody to do. And that's my admonition to you about signing pledges. Is there akin to signing a blank check and handing it to somebody? Because you don't know what's going to come out of this body. And
Yeah.
like I say, to some degree, I apologize to you. This really isn't the setting for it. But I'm pretty angry about it because I caught a lot of heat, same as these other ones. I live with my votes out of this committee.
Yeah,
Just
sure
as
you do,
everyone
Augie.
else. You get to see them. You get to see exactly. how they act.
I've had enough Augie Driscoll. But the whole point is that, he doesn't like pledges at all, unless, of course, it benefits him. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen with this so-called pledge. And the whole thing is, we're not going to attack each other. No, we can disagree without being disagreeable. We have to have civility. You remember that term? You remember a couple of years ago where that was the key phrase where you heard well, it's all about civility. And those Freedom Caucus people, they are the least civil folks that we've ever run into. We have to have civility. This is the new version of it, that we can disagree without being disagreeable. But the very people that are signing on to this are the most disagreeable folks that you're going to run into. Now, we don't know about David Hill yet. We're going to talk to him about it, and I'm going to ask him about this pledge when he gets on the program. But a lot of them, they're the very people, one, that have a lot of skeletons in their closet, and two, they would be the most likely to use this pledge, even though it specifically says, and by the way, there's an article about it on the Cow Pie. You can go look up this Be a Peacemaker pledge. But what's going to happen is when one of the people that didn't sign up for this, because of course the only person you should have allegiance to is Jesus himself and not other pledges, but that's a whole nother discussion that we can have a whole nother day. But what is going to happen with this pledge is the first time somebody else comes out and says, look, this person voted this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, and they're really not in favor of your personal freedoms. There's something to that effect. It doesn't really matter how it comes out or what the subject matter is. It's going to be, but I signed the pledge. I signed the pledge not to attack my political opponents. Look at how civil I am. I'm engaging in civility. I'm the better person. And how dare you attack me? That is exactly how it's going to be used. And when you look at the list of people on this, and let me put this back up on the screen so you can see it again. When you look at the list of folks on this pledge, that, my friends, is exactly how it's going to come out. Here it is again. So I just showed you Augie. He's really in favor of pledges. Wendy Schuler, she has an interesting relationship with the truth. Elizabeth Bingham, same thing there. Peter Boyer, he said some fascinating things, which if you probably not today, but maybe on Saturday, we're going to talk about him on the podcast. Justin Fornstrom, Lloyd Larson, there's a goodie, man. That guy, lots we could say about him. Micah Sturdivant, she's a communist. I got one of her mailers in my mailbox the other day. Straight up commie. Art Washit, he was the chairman of the Czech Incident Stupid Committee. J.D. Williams, that guy, when he gets on a roll, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. So a lot of the people on this list are the very folks that have said all sorts of different things about conservatives. And there's really, and Augie's the number. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Augie was on the Cowboy morning show, and he spent the better part of 40 minutes, and not a single thing he said in that interview was true. The only thing that he cares about really is getting elected. And so this pledge, the way it is going to be used, will be as a bludgeon to say, I signed the pledge. I'm not going to attack my political opponent. And how dare you attack me? And when they use the word attack, they don't mean that it's that you're being mean to them. They don't mean that you're saying something that's not true, because conservatives don't have to do that. All we have to do is repeat the facts of whatever's going on. But we're in this strange parallel universe when you say the truth about somebody, that's an attack. How dare you attack? How dare you go after them? And if you don't believe me, go to any one of my posts that I've made about Eric Barlow. I can back up everything I've said about that guy. Every article that we've posted on the Open Range Record, absolutely true. He is a radical environmentalist. He does have a crappy record when it comes to the life of the unborn. He is the only guy in the last 20 years in Wyoming that has written gun control into Wyoming law. All of those things are true. But if you go look at the comments on any one of those posts, one of them even accused me of trying to destroy his life. No, I don't want to destroy his life. I want to destroy his political life. Yes, because he's not good for Wyoming. He's not a conservative, and the guy can't tell the truth if it was sitting right in front of his face, because he claims to be a conservative when he's really not. But when conservatives speak the truth about their political enemies, that is an attack. It's somehow, how dare you go after them? You see the difference here? One of them is the truth. The other is when you say something that's not true. Now, if you do the reverse of that, let me show you a whole bunch of posts from Augie and pals, and I'll show you what I mean. Hold on just a second here. Here we go. All right, so there's the list. I showed you the first one. Here's another one. Freedom Caucus is not Wyoming. There is complete outside influence. That's not true. Fueled by dark money from Washington, D.C. Here's another one of Augie's. Know who they are, Freedom Caucus legislators. Freedom in name, control in practice. I showed you kind of this one. Hypocrisy highlights. And then this one, of course, is probably the nastiest one. But the point is that a lot of the very people that have signed up for this pledge are the same folks that they would be the first to make up whatever story about their political enemies. Let me take you back. Now, Senator Ed Cooper, he didn't sign on to this pledge yet, but he's the guy that made up a lie that each Freedom Caucus legislator gets $30,000 from the National State Freedom Caucus Network. None of that is true. I interviewed Andy Roth, the head of the State Freedom Caucus Network, and he laughed at that assertion. And you can look it up. You can go to YCFIS, the Wyoming Campaign Finance Information System, and you can look up and find which one of them took $30,000, and you won't find any of them because it's not true. Well, when Ed Cooper said that, which he later kind of retracted it, but whatever, he said it, and then people like Ogden Driscoll, and there were several others, repeated that claim over and over and over and over. And in the interview with the Cowboy, Augie mentions it more than a couple of times. But it's completely not true. And they know that they can find out if it's true or not because they themselves had to file campaign finance reports. And so a lot of those folks, not all of them, some of them I'm sure are well-meaning, but a lot of those folks, they're the first person that would make up a lie about their political opponents, and many of them have. And so the way that this little pledge is going to be used is as a political cudgel. How dare you attack me? I am so upstanding that I signed onto the Love My Enemies pledge. It's absolutely ridiculous, my friends. And if you're a conservative, you're insane to sign this thing. Because the first time you come out with a fact, something that's absolutely true about your opponent, you will be beat over the head with this thing. I know, it sounds great, and the language looks good, But that's not how it's going to be used, and that's not its intent. Now, the folks behind this, Matt Michaeli, he used to be the chairman of the Wyoming Republican Party. He's the guy that got us fined by the FEC. He also used to be the chairman of Wyoming Hope, the PAC that funds incumbent redcoats. Pick an incumbent redcoat, and Wyoming Hope probably gave them money. And so we're not dealing with people who absolutely have pure intentions here. There's always a political motive, and when you've got Ogden Driscoll and Elizabeth Bingham and the rest of them in that group, you already know what's coming. And I mean, just broadly speaking, why would you tie your hands? Why would you sign something that would prevent you from telling the truth about your opponent? Because we know when conservatives tell the truth about liberals, it's an attack. It's no longer the truth. It becomes you going after them. My friends, this is nothing but a political ploy. And if you're a conservative, don't even think about signing up for this thing, because that is how it will be used. Mark my words, my friends. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by David Hill. He's running for the House of Representatives out of Park County. I never met the guy. I'm looking forward to talking to him. And so he'll be on the show coming up next. But first, an absolutely outrageous profit timeout. The following ad was paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
This is Brent Bean, a Republican for governor. Wyoming families know what matters: law enforcement, emergency services, and supporting strong schools, agriculture, and energy production. But state government keeps growing while priorities fight for resources. That has to change. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending and priority problem. Vote for me on August 18th, and I'll put Wyoming priorities first. I'll return taxes to you, the taxpayer, and make Wyoming number one. Paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Welcome back to the program, my friends. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Wednesday. Thank you for watching the show, my friends. One thing that I forgot about this whole pledge business. Here is what Ogden Driscoll said about pledges just last week. Yeah, they're not really pledges. They're purity tests. Here's what he said.
There's some other things you can probably.
It starts out with Chippy,
there
but
are some
just
things
listen.
on that platform that I think definitely.
It's about the GOP platform pledge.
Thank you. I am a lifelong Republican from conception. I will tell you that. I will not sign your platform. Will not. And here's why. I've been down this road with this end of the deal with the party. It's really interesting. These are purity tests, and they pick and choose bills that fall within pieces of the platforms to do it. It's the exact same thing as the ranking websites that are out there. And you vote on one amendment that failed or something that happened, and they turn it and they change it. And I will tell you right now, I went through your list. I'm probably at 96%.
Yeah, I'm sure he
In my
is.
mind, that's why I do it. But I can tell you this, and I've been treated this way it won't come out that way when you run all your votes through. The way you tell a Republican is take a look at his record and take a look at his voting and what he's done. You can figure it out, vote him in or vote him out, but don't try to force him in a mold somewhere. And that's really what you're doing. You're trying to force them into a.
All right. You get the point. You get the point. Augie doesn't like pledges. So I had my guests confused. We got Jenna Robinson first. I thought it was David Hill, but hey, man, I mean, I'm a busy guy. How you gonna know? So anyway, I'd like to welcome to the program Ms. Jenna Robinson. Jenna, welcome back to the show. How are you this morning?
Great. It's good to be here this morning.
Well, I'm glad we could set it up on. Let's see here. Get your volume turned up. So how are you?
Doing well. Getting ready to celebrate America's 250th birthday. How could I not be doing well?
Exactly right. I mean, I am ecstatic about it. I mean, 250 years. Did you know that the lifespan of the average Constitution across the world is 17 years?
I didn't.
And
that
France,
makes 250 so much more remarkable.
Yeah. And France, and this one's an interesting one because, of course, the French Revolution, I mean, it really got rolling at 1789. They started the tennis court oath. That only lasted like less than a year. But France has had over 42 different versions of their constitution. 42! And ours has lasted 250 years with, some amendments to it. But, I mean, generally speaking, 250 years, pretty incredible.
No, it's a remarkable document.
Absolutely. So you have an interesting document out. You've got a new report about our lone university. Why don't you? Well, I tell you what. It's been a while since you've been on the show. Why don't you take a minute or two, tell us about yourself, and then we'll get to your report.
Sure. So I'm Jenna Robinson. I'm president of the James G. Martin Center for Academic Renewal. We are an organization that works for excellence and accountability in higher education. And we do that through improving state policies. So we are very interested especially in our public universities and making sure that they serve the students and the citizens.
Okay, great. All right, so you have this report out, and you've written the James G. Martin Center has written a couple of different pieces about the University of Wyoming. But first, tell me what this report is about, and then what did you find?
So this report is really about practical reforms that the University of Wyoming can undertake in order to ensure that the needs of students and citizens are being met. And we looked at a couple of different areas where University of Wyoming can concentrate in order to do this. One thing University of Wyoming already does great is it keeps tuition low for students. So that's fantastic. Students can come in and pay low tuition in order to get their degree. But we looked at some financial measures and some academic measures where University of Wyoming can use some improvement. So we looked at accreditation, we looked at academic programs and how productive are they? Are they serving the students? Are students getting a ROI? We looked at the general education requirements. We looked at the administrative bloat at University of Wyoming, and we looked at whether there's viewpoint diversity. And in those areas, we found some areas for improvement in all of those.
All right. So one of the questions I got when I previewed your appearance on the show was, why has enrollment gone down? And I don't know if you looked at that, but when I read your piece that we published on the Open Range Record, I was kind of shocked by the numbers. I mean, that's a big drop for a state as small as Wyoming.
Yes. And, Wyoming is not alone. This is a nationwide phenomenon. And you probably remember the Great Recession was about 18 years ago. And when that recession hit, people started having fewer children. And that demographic bust has continued. And so we are hitting what universities and what demographers are calling the demographic cliff. And that means enrollment at universities is falling off a cliff because after that recession in 2008, the birth rate never bounced back. And so the babies that were not born in 2008 and following are now not showing up to colleges. And so that has been especially a problem in New England and in the Midwest and out West. It has been less of a problem in the states with lots of in-migration from other states.
Okay, now do you think the declining enrollment has anything to do with, I mean, one of the pieces that, I don't know if you wrote it or Yovan wrote it, but one of them was about the lack of viewpoint diversity, I guess that's how you put it. Focus on DEI, LGBTQ stuff. Do you think that that's a contributory factor to the declining enrollment?
Nationwide, it certainly has been. We've seen a very steep erosion of trust in institutions of higher education, and that has been especially sharp amongst conservatives and Republicans who are just very critical of higher education. But overall, Americans have been critical of higher education. They kind of doubt that what universities are doing will provide the return on investment that they want for their kids. And so, and part of that is the fact that universities have often concentrated on these, progressive, faddish areas instead of trying to make sure that they are preparing students for citizenship and jobs.
Yeah, instead of teaching the classics, you've got to read ecofeminism or whatever. So you mentioned that there's some administrative bloat. Can you first describe what that is? Are we bloated at the University of Wyoming? And then if you could, explain why that has kind of a trickle-down effect through the rest of the university.
Sure. So administrative bloat is just when you have too many administrators per the number of students that you are trying to serve. And I think the number one reason for it at the University of Wyoming is that when Wyoming started losing students, the university did not shrink its workforce to match that loss in students. So you still have the same number of administrators you had when you were serving 20% more students. And so now the ratio of administrators to students and even administrators to faculty is just very lopsided. And what that often means is that administrators, and not just the chancellor or the president or the leadership of the university where the authority should be, but you have kind of mid-level administrators who are, steering the everyday activities of the university, and also, taking away funds from where they really should be going into, teaching and research.
Okay, now you mentioned the viewpoint diversity, and this has been a big topic, in Wyoming. I mean, the legislature has had, I don't know how many times they've drugged, the president or the provost in front of the committee and made them answer questions. The most recent one was in front of the Appropriations Committee, and they found that the programs the legislature said, yeah, we're not paying for these anymore. In fact, we want you to do away with them. They didn't eliminate those. They moved them around to different schools, and so all those programs are still there, still doing the same thing. It's just they show up elsewhere. So what did you find when you looked at, is there diversity of views?
So what we did is we looked at the faculty, and we had to use a proxy measurement for the faculty's political beliefs. But what we looked at was Federal Election Commission data on donations to political candidates and PACs from University of Wyoming employees in 2025. And what we found is that 97% of all political donations from UW employees went to Democratic candidates or progressive.
Wow.
97% in a state like Wyoming.
That's incredible, considering that, the state voted whatever it was, 73% for Donald Trump. The university their donations is almost entirely to the Democrat Party. That's huge.
It is. Okay. And recent data from FIRE, which Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, showed that faculty nationwide their views line up not just with Democratic views, but they're lining up with the views of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. It's very, very progressive viewpoints.
So we're not even talking like the halfway sane Democrats. We're talking about the crazy socialists.
It is the far left wing of the Democratic Party is where the average faculty lines up. Yes.
Okay. Now, I mean, I don't know if if you were able to do any research into this, but my friend Gabe Saint, he's the head of Turning Point USA at the university, and when they started their chapter, there the president of the school actually he called it the what did he call it? I forget the name, but basically it was the free speech police, and it was supposed to foster open dialogue and, diversity of viewpoints, like you put it. But really what it was is, hey, if you feel you're being discriminated against, come to this group and we'll take care of it. And I mean, at that time, I remember like just walking through the campus, and it was very clear what the mission or the ideological mission of the school was. I mean, pride flags everywhere. And if you had a red baseball cap on it, you better run. I mean, it really was that bad at one point. So, with the faculty being more Democrat-minded than conservative, what do you think are the immediate impacts? And this might sound like an obvious question, but what do you think are the immediate impacts to the student body? I mean, what do we see happen?
I think the biggest thing that we see happen is self-censorship. If students think that they will be punished or ostracized for their views, they just tend to keep quiet. And that's especially true if they think that they will be graded poorly from faculty members for disagreeing, because obviously those grades matter for their future. They want to get jobs, or they want to get into grad school or law school. And so they just keep mum. And that is especially damaging on a college campus where you are supposed to be inquiring freely and learning from the clash of ideas and the marketplace of ideas. And if students don't feel free to ask questions or to state their opinions, then that marketplace gets shut down.
All right. So one other question. In my view, like a policy position paper is only so valuable as the conclusions that it draws. In other words, it's easy to complain about something. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit harder to offer some policy prescriptions. So, in your work there, what solutions did you come up with?
Right. So we did include a lot of what we consider practical policy solutions. I'll just talk about some of the solutions for viewpoint diversity. And this one's tough because you don't want to step on academic freedom or free speech. And so what we recommend for viewpoint diversity is that the university itself host additional public policy debates so that students can see dialogue in action. They can see that dialogue modeled. And the university should be inviting people to have those debates who might not ordinarily be on campus. If 97% of your faculty are left of center, you need to invite some speakers from right of center to be on campus to represent that position. You need to ensure fair evaluation of academic performance. That should be something, ideally on a syllabus that faculty say, you have a right to impartial assessment of your academic work. You will be judged on the merits and not on personal beliefs or viewpoints. Again, in syllabi, university professors should be encouraging dialogue in class. They should include commitments to free expression. And they should also, and this is something that has, I think, gotten a little bit of momentum nationwide, is to put prudent limits on academic freedom. So make it clear that academic freedom does not include teaching content that is irrelevant to the prescribed course or using university resources for political activity.
All right. Another question I just thought of. So we know that the faculty at most universities are pretty progressive leaning. In your mind, is there a shortage of qualified personnel that aren't so left leaning, that are more, that donate to Republicans, that are conservative? I mean, is there a shortage of those folks? Do they just not go into academia? Talk to me about that.
There is a pipeline problem. Conservatives are less likely than liberals to go into graduate school, to pursue the PhD, to stick with the PhD, and then to become a faculty member. And, there are myriad reasons. Some is because just the preferences of those two groups of people. Some of it has been that there has been discrimination for a long time. Universities requiring diversity statements. You had to state your your position on DEI, and that screened out a lot of conservatives who wanted to say, well, I'm going to treat all my students the same. University of Wyoming, to its credit, has already said we will not use diversity statements. Those are prohibited. So good job, University of Wyoming, on that. But because of that past, use of diversity statements, and because of conservatives' impressions of campus, there are fewer who've wanted to go into the professoriate. That is turning around a little bit now. We have all of these new schools of civic thought, which are, I think, very encouraging to conservatives. They feel more welcome there. They feel like maybe this is an area where I could go get a PhD. But of course, that takes time. And so I think we're never going to get to parity in our universities for professors on the right and on the left. But if you just get a couple in there, you reintroduce dialogue. And I think that's what's so important.
Did you see who the University of Wyoming hired as their new university president? Did you happen to notice who that is?
I did not, no.
So he was the head of West Point under Joe Biden. He was one of the very first people that Trump got rid of when he was elected. And I mean, he's Mr. DEI. And the University of Wyoming hired him as their president. I mean, Ray Charles could have seen that one coming.
Yeah. I think a lot of universities, when they go to look for their new presidents, they hire a search firm, and the search firm looks at what they have always been looking at and looking for in university presidents. They have not changed their tune on hiring at all. So they are still looking for pro DEI. They are still looking for establishment characters when they're out searching for new presidents. And I think we've seen this. This is a theme in red states where you would think that the trustees of public universities would really want presidents who are going to protect free speech and encourage viewpoint diversity. And then they find someone who is, from the usual college mold. And I think a lot of the blame does rest on these search firms that are kind of just coming up with the same old candidates every time.
Well, and for the person that doesn't pay attention to politics like you or I do, you might say, hey, we've hired the guy who was the president of West Point. And if you don't look into any of his credentials, anything he's done, you might say, wow, okay, how did we find this guy? And you might just think, well, that's fantastic. He's a brigadier general. This may be discipline at the university. But when you look into, his I guess, pedigree, I might say, you find something entirely different. So another question I have for you, have you, and this is kind of independent of your report, but have you looked into have you done any research on trade schools? We've got a couple of them in Wyoming, WyoTech, where, students are trained with occupations. Have you done any research into those?
Yes, I have. And I think there are a couple of big takeaways here. First is that the workforce really needs people to go to these schools and graduate from these schools. The second takeaway is that there's a huge variety in quality. And so I think while I'm a huge fan of trade schools, I think they're extremely important. They're doing wonderful work. Students just need to be sure to look ahead of time to see what is the return on investment of this particular school I'm looking at, because some of them are great. And I have heard wonderful things about WyoTech. And then some of them don't give students the ROI that they're looking for. And so I think it's just a question of, buyer beware, pick the right one.
Yeah. And, the other thing, too, and this is I was really pleased to see this in the legislature, that there's a real move towards, maybe we don't need to spend so much money at the University of Wyoming. We've got a litany of great community colleges throughout the state. And so, at least there's a desire, I would say, to, put some more support to those different schools. And, and I don't know about other states, but I think that Wyoming, we've got a pretty good network of, smaller community colleges. And, and a lot of times, okay, I guess I should back up on this. Sometimes you find the radical that's hiding in the community college. But more often than not, they're folks that are, from that community that understand the students. You get smaller class sizes. So, I think that there's some encouraging things happening in higher education. Just for me and perhaps for you, they're just not happening fast enough for me.
No, absolutely. I think that people are reconsidering community colleges in a way that they didn't used to. They're looking at them because they provide the skills for the jobs that people need, especially in very high demand fields like healthcare. And so, parents and students are looking at them and saying, well, maybe this is an option that is going to fit me better than the 4-year state university or the 4-year private university.
Well, and that's what I did. I realized pretty early that it doesn't matter where you do your first 2 years. I mean, no university really cares. The only thing they care is that you've got the credits. And so, I went to the school right here in Sheridan. I loved it. I mean, it was great. Small class sizes. You actually knew your professor. When you didn't show up for class, you got a phone call. Hey, are you okay? Are you sick? So I think there's a lot of advantages. All right, so we've got a few minutes left. Why don't you tell my audience about the James G. Martin Center and what it is that you do and how people can get a hold of you.
The Martin Center, as I said before, is an organization that works for excellence and accountability in higher education. We do that through better public policy, especially for states and trustees. If you want to find out more about the Martin Center, you can go to jamesgmartin.center or find us on social media.
All right. Well, Jenna, thank you very much for taking some time for me this morning. I really appreciate it. And let me know if there's anything else that you come out with or anything else that you learn about our school.
Absolutely. Great to talk to you again.
All right. Thanks. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, bye-bye. All
right. That was Jenna Robinson, and she is the head of the James G. Martin Center for Academic Renewal. I think that's what it's called. But there's a lot of stuff that that there's a lot of work that's being done at the post-secondary level. And a lot of us don't really think too often about it, simply because we just send our kids to school and we just assume that everything is going to be okay and that they're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff. And when in reality, that may not be the case. They may be learning all sorts of DEI and all sorts of crazy stuff. So anyway, if you want to read Jenna Robinson's op-ed, it is on the Open Range Record. And I think it's pretty well near the top. And again, if you want to learn more about the work that they do, you can go to the website that she mentioned. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, well, at the top of the hour anyway, we're going to have David Hill, who's running for the House of Representatives. Sorry, I got the two time slots mixed up. But anyway, we'll take a break, and we'll continue when we come back. The calendar says that it's summer, and you believe it. Oh, that's just so cute. But you obviously haven't lived here very long, have you? And you probably think that the weather is just going to continue to warm up. You don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that spring snowstorm, you'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election. Siberia.
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada. Straight to hell. Iceland. France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy state politics is only getting stronger. 60,000 views every single month, and it's going up. I mean, I can't even keep track of it. Don't forget about the Cowboy State Politics podcast, this program, Cowboy State Politics Live, and now the open range record, much to the chagrin of every redcoat in this state. Yeah. We're about the only ones telling you the truth. Well, at least, giving you an alternative viewpoint and sometimes doing some journalism. Well, we're a little bit ahead of schedule on today's program, and I see that Mr. David Hill joined the program a little bit early. So I say, let's just get the ball rolling. David, welcome to the program.
Hi, David. Nice to meet you finally.
Yeah. Well, all right. So it's the first time on the program, so we'll give you the treatment that everybody gets. Why don't you take a minute or two and tell my audience about yourself?
So I'm here in Cody, Wyoming. I have been in Cody for about 5 years. I was in Moreland before. I was in Laramie before that. I originally didn't want to be a lawyer. You probably can't blame me for that. I worked in the automotive industry, and I worked as a non-union supervisor over a unionized workforce. And I wanted to do something less confrontational. I went to law school. But my dad was in retail growing
less
up.
Less confrontational?
So all over. And yeah, and I think there might be a little bit of a delay.
There is.
See if I can fix that. Let me see. Are we better now?
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
Oh,
maybe.
Okay. There'll just be a delay between you asking a question and me giving an answer, and that's not just me thinking.
All right. Anyway, you're a lawyer over in Cody. So what kind of law do you practice? Do you do personal injury? Do you do defense? Do you kind of a jack of all trades, take them as they come through the door? What do you practice?
Well, it's Wyoming, and it's a small town, so it's a little bit of everything. Our firm does we do a bit of personal injury cases where we're holding the government accountable for things that they've done. I have a case over in Sheridan County. I can't see the details on it, but it's a government accountability type case. Have a case here in Park County where someone was denied his firearm rights, even though his rights stored in the original jurisdiction, and so I had to help that guy with getting that fit. So it's a constitutional.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. So you're running for the House of Representatives. It sounds like you're a busy guy. Why the heck would you want to do that? What gave you the idea to run for office?
I have 3 kids. I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an almost 2-year-old. My almost 2-year-old was born on primary night 2 years ago. I care about what's going to happen for my kids. I care about making sure that Wyoming's a good conservative state going forward. That's the place that they want to continue to live on up. I just want to protect what we have here.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? Are you more independent minded? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, no, I view myself as like I said, I'm a constitutional conservative attorney. So I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. There was last week you had a guest on the show who had mentioned that there's someone running for House District 50 who says that they're running as a conservative, not as a Republican. And I think that was taken out of context. There was a debate a couple weeks ago, and the question was, what does it mean to you to be a Republican? I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican. When I was 18, I registered as a Republican.
Okay. So words mean. Go ahead.
To be a Republican, and for me, it was I'm a conservative. Being a conservative, the Republican Party is the one that lines up most with those conservative values that I have.
Okay, words mean things, and we tend to throw words around a lot. You're an attorney. You understand the definitions are important. And so you use the word conservative. What does it mean to be a conservative?
Right. So to me, being a conservative is being fiscally responsible, having those family values, having faith, having a small government, making sure that government is accountable to the people, and making sure that it's limited. Really, to me, it comes to the 14th plank of the Republican Party platform. And the last two sentences of the Republican Party platform say, we believe the most responsive and responsible government is the one that's closest to the people, and the government that governs least governs best. So it's those timeless truths in the Republican Party platform, which really are those conservative.
Okay. All right. So let's just hit a couple of those. Where are you at on abortion? Do you believe that that life begins at conception, and that, just talk to me about it. Okay. Maybe you didn't. Through. Okay. All right. So first question then, or next question anyway. Where are you at on abortion? Do you think that life begins at conception? That every life is sacred? Do you think that we ought to have exceptions? Where are you at on the scale of pro-life legislation?
Right. So I'm a pro-life guy. Kids, me and my wife, we've decided that we're not for abortion. I don't believe in elective abortion, and I don't believe in just as a form. I don't believe abortion up till all these exceptions. I believe that that life begins at conception, and then so it's really the first plank of the Republican Party platform is believing that life begins at action and continues till natural death.
Okay. So are there any restrictions on, or should we have any restrictions on a person's right to keep a firearm?
No, no, I'm probably a little bit of a nut as far as guns go. So maybe I think that term gets a bad rap. Don't ask me how many guns I have, because I would need you to give me a warrant before I tell you that. But no, I am not in favor of any type of gun control.
Okay, what about carrying guns in the Capitol? You think we should be able to open carry in the Capitol building? You're going to be in there, so this should be a question that crossed your mind.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's talk about some. All right, let's talk about some policies. You're running for the House, and there's a number of big issues. Let's talk about education. So, do you think that we spend enough on education, or do we need to spend more, or do you think that the legislature is handling it appropriately? Give me your thoughts.
I didn't get the full question, but I think it was, what do you think about the education, and what do you think that is the legislature
Funding.
handling education appropriately?
Yep, good.
Okay. So really for me, education, I think that for the most part, yes, with some exceptions. I support school choice. There was a group here a couple of years ago that tried to start a charter school. Unfortunately, the only funding that was allocated had already been earmarked for a school in Star Valley. So that group didn't get the charter school, but I'm supportive of school choice. Also, my kids are going to public school, so I'm supportive of our public school teachers. I think that the kids have been very good. I think county, at least. I'm not sure about the rest of the state, but here in Park County, we have good ones. I think the question really is about the siloing. I think that's really what your question is coming down to. I think it's great that the legislature wants to make sure that funds are going towards teachers, that we're giving teachers raises. That's a great thing. The concern that I have is when we get rid of some of the local control, again, that goes to the plank of the platform, is we believe the decisions should be made close to the people. When we're getting rid of those decisions to a certain extent, how is this going to affect some activities? I think that one group is probably overblowing the effects that it's going to have locally, but I think that it will have some effect. So I think that there's probably a medium between what we've been doing and what we're trying to do now. That's probably the best middle ground.
Okay, so a year ago, actually a little bit more than a year ago, the legislature passed an 8.5% raise for every school employee, the janitor, the secretary, teachers, everybody. And there was only one school district in the entire state that actually followed that, and that was Sublette County. Your county of Park County, and I didn't look up the number, but they didn't give an 8.5% raise to teachers. And so when a local municipality or political subdivision, whether it be a school or a town or a county or whatever, isn't following the law, don't you think that it is the legislature's responsibility to make sure that that local municipality is following the law?
Sorry, I'm sorry. It is. Would it be better if I called in because of the delay? I want to make sure that
let's try this.
More coherent when.
Okay, so let's do this. Okay, try to cut your video. If you heard that. Okay. All right. You still with me, David?
I am. And I think that might have helped a little bit.
Okay. Well, let me try that question again. And so my question is, all right, you know what? Let me, let's just do this. Let me set it up to where you can just call in, and it'll just take me just a second.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Yeah, no big deal. Give me just a second. All right, tell you what, we're going to go to a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll continue with David Hill. So just a second, we'll be back in a minute. It's open line. It's not. That was the wrong button. All right, here we go. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, we'll finish up with David Hill. Here we go. Are you sick to death of being told what to think? Maybe you don't even realize that it's happening. Freedom Caucus bad, big spending, big government, liberal, Republican good. Conservatives are bad and they want to starve little children. I have heard it all, my friends. We are way past the time when the news was just the news, if it ever was. But wouldn't it be nice if you had a news platform that was at least honest about what they were telling you? News on the news page, opinion on the opinion page. That's exactly what the Open Range Record is. Go to the website, openrangerecord.com. News, analysis, opinion, and investigative journalism. One more time, that website is openrangerecord.com. You can listen and watch Cowboy State Politics live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Rumble every Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pay attention to all that other block-headed, Borg-like so-called news if you want. But if you want to get the real story, watch Cowboy State Politics live. And now, back to the program. All right, we're back. You for putting up with us this morning. This is Cowboy State Politics Live. And now we should have Mr. David Hill. David, you back with us?
I sure hope so.
All right, that sounds a little bit better. All right, so if you're just now joining us, we've got David Hill, who was running for the House of Representatives. I couldn't make the video connection work, but we got him on the phone. So there's more than a couple of ways to skin a skinny cat. So, all right, David. So here's my question, the one I tried to ask. So you mentioned that that one of the issues you might have is with local control. Here's my long-winded question. A year or so ago, the legislature passed an 8.5% raise for all school staff, janitors, custodial engineers, secretaries, teachers, everybody got an 8.5% raise. And there was only one school district in the entire state that actually did that. It was Sublette County. Even your county, Park County, they didn't give a raise to their people. And so my question is, if your local political subdivision refuses to follow the law, is it not the legislature's responsibility to step in and make sure that they're following the law? Isn't that, that's the way I see it. How about you, David?
No, that's fair. That's fair. I don't really have anything to expand on that. I think that's right. I look at examples of that type of thing all over the place. You got the Wyoming State Hospital, for example, and they wanted to improve the services at the Wyoming State Hospital and put millions of dollars into it. And I think added one bed, but have a lot better administrative suites. That's concerning when we see money that's earmarked for improvements and it doesn't go where it needs to go. So, yeah, I think that especially fiscal oversight is the legislature's prerogative.
Well, and this whole school silo thing is fascinating to me because it's clear that the legislature has provided plenty of money to pay the teachers. And that's their main argument, right? It always has been. You don't pay teachers enough. We can't hire good quality teachers because we don't have the money. Then the legislature gives school districts several $1 million to pay teachers, and they don't do it. They take that money and they spend it elsewhere, presumably on football pads. And then the argument is, well, now we don't have enough money for athletics because you're forcing us to pay the teachers, which means that you are taking the money meant for teachers and spending it on the football pads. It's a wonderful, wonderful argument that they screwed up.
Right. So that's a fair thing. And I think what commonly, so in my profession, you have the plaintiff and the defendant, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Sure.
And that's probably what's going on here too, is that I think that there might be the pendulum tends to swing. And when the legislature says, hey, we gave you this money to do this, we're disappointed that you haven't been doing what you want. So I guess we need to take a little bit more control. I think the pendulum may have swung a little bit far on this side, but I understand the reaction. I understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Well, why shouldn't money meant for the classroom be spent in the classroom?
Right.
All right. Well,
It should.
well, yeah, that's the whole point, right? All right. So one question I've been dying to ask you. Big article in the Cowboy yesterday about this Let's Love Our Enemies pledge. Why'd you sign it?
Right. So I think it was 3 years ago, almost, I did an article about disagreeing better. We need to disagree. I'm sure there's one or two subjects that you and I might disagree on, but we need to be able to disagree. I don't think it's really a kumbaya. We need to, we need to be best friends, but we need to be able to disagree with each other and at the end of the day, be able to go and get a drink together. I think that's a fair way to approach it. That's how I practice my profession is, look, I'm going to argue that the other attorney is doing a terrible job and that their client is wrong and, is dead wrong. But at the end of the day, I need to be able to get along with the other people in the legislature. To me, it goes to a quote from, who was it? I'm going to butcher this quote, but it was, I will unite with any to do good and no one to do evil. And that's what it is for me is, look, I'm going to work with any legislator if it's going to benefit our state and not just let my emotions get in the way.
All right. Does it bother you at all that this is probably not a fair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Does it? Yeah. So does it bother you at all that many of the people that have signed up on this pledge, they are the very first people to do the exact opposite of what they just pledged to do, not to do?
And I didn't know who signed it. I received it. I look at every single survey that comes into my inbox, and some of them I specifically don't answer. I think I got one this morning from the Moms Demand Action, every state for gun safety or something like
Lord.
that.
Those people.
I'm not planning on answering that one, but this one I read the survey. I tended to agree with what it said, and so I felt comfortable signing the pledge. I didn't really care who. I had no idea who else signed it, and I didn't really care who signed it.
That's fair enough. Being in this business for as long as I have, and it's I don't know, it's a blessing and a curse, but I have the inability to remember what a lot of people say and do for a really long time. And I spent the first 20 minutes of today's show playing videos of some of the people swearing that they wouldn't do what they have just signed up to do. So anyway, I think it's interesting. And my fear, though, is that what this will turn into is, how dare you attack me? I'm not going to attack anybody. And one of the things, and maybe this is a good question for you, you're a lawyer. What do you make of this whole, when conservatives tell the truth about a candidate, that is, this candidate voted on X, Y, and Z, that somehow that becomes an attack. Somehow you're going after them. Why is it that the truth has now become an attack?
So saying that I learned growing up was people that like being brutally honest, like being brutal more than they like being honest. And that's just, I think there's, let me back up.
Fair enough.
I've been married for 10 years. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. I can be completely right and be completely wrong at the same time. I can have all the facts on my side. I can have all the data, and I can have the text receipts and everything else that say that David was right. But the way I said it to my wife is that I'm wrong, and I just lost the argument, right? So I think that calling people out is fair game. You have records, you have votes, you have what people have said. that's fair. But it's how we do it. And when it's done with the intent to damage or belittle or destroy, that's when I have an issue with it. But if you're calling out a record, go ahead.
Okay, fair enough. I was just going to comment. You must have read Jerry Spence's book. There's a whole chapter on how you can be right with your wife and you're completely wrong. By the way, you just got an award recently. Give you a minute or two. Why don't you tell us about it?
Right, thank you. I appreciate that. So it's the Jerry Spence Rising Star of the Year Award. So it's very apropos that you bring up Jerry Spence, and it's for young attorneys in Wyoming who are, I guess, rising in the legal profession and showing an ability to represent their clients in court and kind of fight for the little guy. Jerry was a great example of that when, Ruby Ridge, he represented Randy Weaver and the family. That was against ATF and the government and, FBI and everybody else who was involved in that catastrophe up in Ruby Ridge. And he always fought for the little guy. And I think that's, so to have my name on an award that bears his name is an honor for me.
Yeah, pretty cool. He was, it's interesting being as conservative as I am and being a real big fan of a giant liberal like Jerry Spence. It's always been a wonderful contradiction in my head. All right, so let's get back to policy. So do you think that the state government spends too much money? Or do you think our budget's about right? I mean, the conservatives in the House made a valiant effort to defund the Wyoming Business Council. Tell me where you are on that one. Get rid of the Business Council, or is it good?
So I think that the Business Council could probably use some changes. I don't think that we should disband it altogether. The changes that we need to the Wyoming Business Council are going to require more than just, hey, let's defund it. I think that we need to make sure that its mission is focused on what the people of Wyoming need, that it's fair, that it's actually being productive. I think, infrastructure projects that benefit all businesses across the board are a great thing. That, we're not just bringing in one particular industry because that's the industry that we tend to enjoy or that we're sided with. I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce here in Cody. What the Wyoming Business Council also does is they provide training for businesses in the community. We have the Park County Leadership Institute, and they've been a sponsor of the Park County Leadership Institute. I think that that's a good thing for our community, for the economy, for measured growth, not crazy, out of control growth, but measured, sustaining growth in a community. So I think that there definitely is a purpose and function. I don't think that we should get rid of it completely, but where it's not being responsive and responsible, those things need to be brought in. Just like you were talking about with education, we need to bring in education when those entities aren't doing what we told them we wanted them to do. That's what we need to do with the Business Council too. If it's not doing what it's designed to do, it does need some changes.
Okay. Article 16, Section 6 of the Wyoming Constitution says that you can't loan or give your credit to anybody, and there's a long list, except for necessary support for the poor. There's another section, and I always forget this reference, but it says we can't give tax dollars to anybody, anything that is not under the absolute control of the state. How do you square those two with the Business Council picking winners and losers and the Constitution saying you can't do that?
Right, and that's where I go back to what I think that the main principle or purposes would be is infrastructure, things like that, where infrastructure is going to be under the control of the state. If you have roads, water, power, things like that, that's control of the state. It's beneficial to the economy because we get to see businesses come into places. And so I really think that that's a big benefit that it could play is helping those communities with the development.
Yeah, David, but that's not what the Business Council has been doing. A cosmetics company in Jackson is not infrastructure. A berry farm in Laramie is not infrastructure. I mean, why is it the proper role of government for them to pick winners and losers?
Right. And I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that they're doing perfectly and that they don't need change. I'm agreeing that they need some change.
Okay. Oh, well, you and I can disagree on that one because there's several places in the Constitution that say it can't do it. Of course, we amended the Constitution to allow that. It's what we do here in Wyoming. So if you were to get elected, if you're successful, what are the priorities you want to focus on in your first session?
Right. So, I mean, it's really what people in my community have brought to me. I have a couple people who've tried to put up political yard signs, and their HOA says no, you can't support candidates by putting up a political yard sign. And to me, that's a problem. It's a free speech. It's a suppression of free speech rights. So that's something from my community that I care about, and I agree that we need to have those free speech rights. And free speech isn't just protecting the speech that you like; it's protecting the speech that you find vile and disgusting. And I think that we need to protect each other's free speech. I think a great example of that was Anthony Bouchard and Carly Provenza several years ago, where Carly had a post that was pretty gross about, I think, Antifa and shooting people.
Pretty disgusting.
And Anthony Bouchard said, "Hey, look, this is a free speech issue," and those are people who have pretty diametrically opposed views, and there was a support because it was free speech. So for me, protecting political speech, especially in the free speech arena, is huge. The counter argument that people are going to bring up is, well, HOA, that's a contract. We should let people have a freedom of the contract. But the state has routinely gotten involved in limiting contracts. For example, non-compete agreements. They've limited non-competes, and that's a contractual agreement too. So I think when it serves the public interest, there is an argument to be made for, I think the First Amendment is greater than this minor provision of a contract.
I think we can agree with
that. That's one thing. I also look at the Food Freedom Act, and here in Park County we had the Hippie Cow Creamery or dairy that has had some issues with some bureaucrats jumping in and interpreting the law the way that they think that it should be interpreted, and shutting this business down or limiting them. And I don't think that was the intention of the Food Freedom Act. So if we can, I think there's some pretty broad support for going into the Food Freedom Act and clarifying that so that these businesses who are operating, and I'm not saying, and this isn't to say that we should get rid of food safety. That's not the argument. I had a Democrat who came up to me and said, "Oh, you support the Food Freedom Act. That must mean that you don't want pasteurized milk and you want E. coli and No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying adults should be able to have a decision to buy products that they want to buy. So going into the Food Freedom Act and clarifying that, I think that's another thing that's affecting my community.
All right, let's go back to the free speech question for a minute. Would you support anti-SLAPP legislation? That's been a big topic that apparently when a conservative bill gets to the Senate, it dies. But would you be supportive of that?
Can you give me a little bit more explanation? I'm sorry.
Sure. A SLAPP lawsuit SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. And essentially, it's a frivolous lawsuit that's intended just to shut up anybody, but it's directed at journalists most of the time. Would you be in favor of some sort of legislation that limits the ability of an individual to file a SLAPP lawsuit?
I mean, yeah, I would. It would depend on the bill. It depends on the language of the bill. I think that journalism, along with political speech, journalism is one of the foundations and bedrocks of our society. So I don't think that we need to. I think that we should be very careful about having lawsuits that will limit that freedom of expression.
I mean, we've got a guy running for Congress that, I mean, he thinks he's Oprah. You get a lawsuit. You get a lawsuit. You get a lawsuit. And you know,
I don't want a lawsuit. I don't comment on that one.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, man. Well, so what, I don't think I asked you, what district are you running for the House of Representatives?
So that's House District 50. It's the east side of Cody, goes up to Ralston, goes up to Clark.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me, David. Keep me posted on how everything goes. And if folks want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
So you can email me, David at hill4yo. That's the number 4, hill4yo.com. That's probably the best way. I'm an attorney, so I'm in front of my computer quite a bit, and I see those emails. My phone number is 527-0944. So if you want to give me a call, I suppose I'm putting myself out there. So it's a little dangerous, but go ahead and give me a call and we can talk about it. I'm happy to talk.
Fair enough. All right, David. Well, I appreciate your time and good luck on your race.
Thank you, David.
All right. Okay, so that was David Hill. He's running for the House of Representatives out of Park County. And it's if you are running for, political office, and I focus mostly on the state legislature, but if you're running for the state house and you haven't heard from me yet, that doesn't mean I don't want to talk to you. It means I haven't sent you an email yet. And so if you want to be on the program, my email address is david@cowboystatepolitics.com. Go ahead and shoot me an email and we'll set an interview up. We've got, my schedule's filling up, so you might want to do that sooner rather than later. All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll finish up the program. Back in a minute. The calendar says that it's summer, and you believe it. Well, that's just so cute. But you obviously haven't lived here very long, have you? And you probably think that the weather is just going to continue to warm up. You don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that spring snowstorm, you'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election. Siberia.
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada. Straight to hell. Iceland. France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger.
Welcome back to the program, my friends. Cowboy State Politics Live. I'm your host, David Iverson, doing what I was born to do with talent given to me by God himself. Welcome back to the show, my friends. Thank you for watching. Thank you for everything you do for Cowboy State Politics. And by the way, if you watch an episode of this show or you listen to the podcast, make sure you share it and like the episode. And if you can, whatever platform you're on, leave me a review. I know, everybody says that but everybody wants you to leave a review. But it really helps. And it helps the algorithm, and it helps expand the program. So if you could do that for me. And by the way, since I already have the phone lines open, if you want to call in, we got 30 minutes-ish left of the program. So if you've got a question, something you want to talk about, the studio line is 307-374-8989. I'll leave the phone lines open for the rest of the program. And so give me a call if there's something you want to talk about. Now, as you all know, well, let me back up. I should address this first. So if you've listened to Cowboy State Politics for a while, you'll notice that when I interview political candidates, there's the same questions that pop up pretty much every time. And, there's abortion, and we talk about guns and, with the platform. One of the reasons why I ask the same questions is to get these folks on the record. And so that it's recorded, they said it, here's what you said. And so when and if, most of the time it's when you're talking to politicians, but anyway, when they end up voting the opposite of what they told you, well, now we have a record of it. And, so that's why I ask the same questions. Yeah, I know they're predictable. And you probably know, every candidate is wise enough, I would hope, to listen to the show before you go on it. But that's why I ask the same questions. And so we get them on the record, get the responses. And that way, when they do the opposite, which most of them do, we've got something to hold them accountable to. So if you're ever wondering why I do that, that's why. Now, as you all know, I really like op-eds. And one of my favorite types is letters to the editor. And there's one in the Turkey Vulture this morning that caught my attention. And this one is entitled, Being in the Middle Politically Isn't Bad, but it is increasingly difficult. It is also impossible. Nobody is moderate about anything. And those folks who claim to be moderate, that's a word that is used to describe your left-leaning tendencies, and so that it doesn't come out sounding so bad, so you don't get called a Democrat. Now, here's how I can say, and here's why I say, that nobody is really moderate. Take a simple case. Nobody is moderate about the pothole in front of their house. You always think that it's bad, and you're always wondering why the government or the city doesn't come along and fix the pothole that you already pay them to fix. Nobody is moderate about the price of property taxes. You either think that they're fine and that they shouldn't be, we shouldn't lower them, or you think that we pay the government too much darn money. Nobody is moderate about that. And those people who claim to be, they're only telling you a story so that you won't think that they're a radical Democrat. Now, what this op-ed says, and let me just read you the opening paragraphs of it, and I quote, "As we come together to celebrate America's 250th anniversary," are you getting tired of that yet? Everybody has to say that, and it's exciting. I get it. I'm a historian. I think it's tremendous that our Constitution has lasted for 250 years. But it shows up everywhere, and unless it's appropriate, man, come on. Anyway, this writer says, "I'm reminded of all the sacrifices our forefathers have made to create this nation. They gave up their previous citizenship to forge a new one, far from their loved ones, and many of them lost much of their worldly goods to do so. I wonder what they would think if they could see how the United States is today. Not always united, are we? Reminds me of an English firecracker. Extremists on either side pulling the strings until the whole thing pops. Those of us in the middle have been twisted and pulled for years, but these days seem exceptionally trying. Somewhere along the way, being a moderate citizen has gone out of fashion. That's sad because being in the middle just means one can see both sides of an issue and try to negotiate pragmatically to find the common ground. I got news for you. Our forefathers, the guys that crafted the Constitution, were not moderates. They were definitely on one side. And those folks who claimed to be moderate, they were the folks who would say, well, I doubt very seriously any of them were like, well, I could go either way, either this freedom thing or living under the king. It doesn't really matter to me. They were the Tories. They were the folks that really liked things the way that they are. And so when you look at that whole dynamic, you only really had two sides of it, that you had the folks that were okay with the way things are, i.e. the Tories, and you had the folks that said, screw this king, we're going to do our own thing. They were the patriots. And so if there is somebody that says that they're moderate, which I would love somebody to call in or leave me a comment about how this is possible. But they would have to say, well, I don't know about this killing babies thing. I could go one way or another. It doesn't really matter to me. What about guns? Well, I don't really think that the Second Amendment means what it says. We ought to have some restrictions, which by definition means that you don't agree with the Second Amendment. Well, people should be able to say what they want, but you shouldn't be able to say anything mean. That kind of means you're not in favor of the First Amendment. And the list goes on and on, my friends. The truth is, the only thing that stays in the middle of the road very long is the yellow line and deer carcasses. And if you claim to be a moderate, literally you're doing this. Which way is the wind blowing today? Really, the thing that you're not moderate on is yourself, to be part of whichever group is the popular one. The truth is, my friends, that there are no real moderates. Look at the Wyoming legislature. The media goes on ad nauseum claiming that there's a group of moderates. Really? The folks that vote for higher taxes, that vote against any piece of conservative legislation, that vote against giving teachers raises, the folks that sided with the whole thing, maybe we shouldn't prevent the government from telling you to jab a piece of metal into your arm. None of those people are moderate about anything. And when it comes down to it, you're either voting one way or you're voting the other. And if you look at the vote totals from either the House or the Senate, there really are no, maybe there's one person that ends up voting kind of in the middle. But even when you ask about specific topics, they're either one side or the other. My point is that nobody is really moderate. You're not moderate when it comes to your own finances. You're not moderate when it comes to your own checkbook. You're not moderate about your own freedom of speech. You're not moderate about the Second Amendment. You're not moderate when it comes to your kids. You're not moderate when it comes to your wife. You're not moderate when it comes to your personal property. Nobody is. And so anybody that claims, well, really, I'm moderate. Really? And if you're watching today's program, I have been looking for the biographies of all of the great moderates in American history. There's got to be one somewhere. See, the trouble is I haven't been able to find any of them because they don't exist. My friends, anybody who tells you that they're a moderate, they are just trying to find out which way the wind is blowing so that you will vote for them. Because I guarantee when they get down to Cheyenne, they're not going to be moderate anymore. It's either one side or the other. And our system is set up that way. So those folks who say, and look at this one, right? Somebody says, well, I'm generally in favor of the life of the unborn, but we have to have exceptions. What about life of the mother? That means you're not in favor of the unborn. It means you think that you can kill a baby because it's inconvenient to you. The truth is, my friends, that there are no real moderates. That's a term that the media uses to convince you that the people who are actually Democrats aren't. Let's get back to the op-ed. And it ends up this way, and it's not very long. Quote, no more grandstanding. There are serious problems. Fighting national debt, terrifying personal debt, starting wars with other countries, citizens not feeling safe, people struggling financially, regional ongoing drought. I doubt very seriously that even the author of this op-ed is moderate on any one of those things that they just listed. Quoting again, an extremely crowded race this year means even more time spent watching debates, drilling down on candidate promises, checking records from incumbents, and doing our homework to elect next leaders. Leaders with intellect and integrity. Someone with courage who will stand up for our constitutions, national and state. Someone with character who will tell the truth, even if it's not following the party line. Even the author is not moderate on any of those things, are they? The point is, my friends, that those folks who claim to be a moderate really aren't. I mean, and it's as plain as the nose on everybody's face, and in my case, it's a little bit plainer. All right, let's see here. Oh, you know, a video that I meant to show you yesterday that I totally spaced, and we definitely have time to do it. Kamala Harris. The word salads are back, my friends. You know, this is one of my, I really want Democrats to go find another occupation. I really do want a lot of these redcoats to go fishing and not be in Wyoming. But there are some of them, my friends, that I get really depressed when they leave our great capital city. Like this one. Well, this guy didn't really leave. He just left the Capitol building. Well, he didn't leave voluntarily. He was unelected. But I get kind of bummed out when I don't get sound bites like this anymore.
Oh, I think you got to stop and take a look at what you're doing here. I speak against this because it kind of reminds me of that fairy tale, Cinderella.
Oh, my friends, Bill Henderson. How depressed I was when I realized I wouldn't get any more of those sound bites. So I kind of felt that way a little bit when Kamala Harris, when we were all certain that she was not going to be in the White House, which, by the way, I say all of this in jest because we don't get stuff like I'm about to show you. I mean, think about all the fun we had with all of the word salads. And here's another great example. Watch this. This one just happened recently.
We each have light inside of us.
What's going on here? Why can't we hear it?
We need to know that is what inspires our hope as much as anything external to ourselves.
Well, it's muted. Hold on just a second. Maybe you heard it, but I didn't. Here we go.
We each have light inside of us. And we need to know that is what inspires our hope as much as anything external to ourselves. And when we feel that and not allow an election or an individual to dampen that light, and instead let that light kind of carry us, in particular through moments of darkness, that we not only act on that hope, but we inspire that hope in each other. It is so important that we not only have hope, but that we understand that should be a verb, which means that hope has to go hand in hand with action.
The word hope is a verb. Now, I mean, come on, my friends. You got to at least go just a little bit of the ways down the road with me on this one. I guess we still get word salads. We just don't get them at the velocity that we did before. But, I'm happy to know that we haven't lost all of them. It's truly, truly amazing. Oh, and by the way, another guy that has been getting a lot of headlines recently. Let's see. Do I want to do that one? Yeah, maybe. Okay. So James Tallarico. Do you know anything about him? He's the guy in Texas. He's running for the Senate that claims that God is non-binary. Well, there's a new piece of audio out from him. He says that he's the Christian who hates Christians. I kid you not. Listen to this one.
Yeah, and that's, I always think of myself as a Christian who hates Christianity, right? And I always get drawn back into it.
Oh, I always get drawn back into it, but I really hate Christianity. From Breitbart, and I quote, U.S. Senate candidate James Neighbors with Uteruses, Tallarico. He actually said that. It's not women in his book. It's neighbors with uteruses. Anyway, admitted in a recently unearthed podcast that, quote, I always think of myself as a Christian who hates Christianity. Yeah, we all know that. Listen to his own words and brace yourself. That's the one I just played for you. So how did James Six Sexes Tallarico end up saying such a thing? Well, the story begins in February of 2021 when James, not at all gay Tallarico, noticed that someone named Roberto Che Espinoza followed him on social media. Tallarico was so flattered and thrilled that he practically squealed like a little girl with a social media fan letter. So who is Roberto Che Espinoza? Well, here's part of the website description of him. Dr. Robin Henderson Espinoza is a trans queer activist, Latinx scholar, and politicized theologian working in the borderlands of church and faith communities, social change movements, and higher education institutions. Important to note that Dr. Robin believes that they are non-binary, transgender. I don't even know what any of this stuff is. Latinx, who is trained as a constructive philosophical theologian that holds a PhD in religion from the University of Denver. Wow! In other words, a person who absolutely does not know who they are at all. And now, Espinoza once wrote a paper for the Journal of Feminist Studies in Religion titled Transing Religion, Moving Beyond the Logic of the Heteronorm of Binaries. This is the person that James Tallarico follows. And if you understood any of that I just said, or read rather, you and I need to have a conversation, because you definitely don't need to be following this. The only thing you really need to know is that all of this is absolutely bananas, that it is absolute insanity. And all of it is detached from reality. And why is it? Why does the left so, and not so much anymore? I mean, there's been a marked decrease in the woke agenda that I've noticed. I mean, a year ago, every Democrat on the planet was screaming about how we have to, trans women are women, and you still hear some of that. But why are they trying to do that? Because if they can convince you that a man can become a woman, or that a woman can become a trout, or that a trout can become a giraffe, well, that goes to the very core of one of the first fundamental truths that all of us learned when we were born, that you have a mommy and a daddy. And if you are able to undermine that fundamental truth that all of us know, that none of us would be around without those two people, mommy and daddy, then you can get people to believe anything. You believe in all of this, feminist, transing religion, all that bullcrap that I just said. But if you can undermine the things that people hold true, then you can convince them of anything. You can convince them of such absurdities that, well, the government doesn't have enough of your money and we need to tax you more. Well, of course you do. Yes. I mean, we need to spend way more money on football pads. Or that the bill that made sure that teachers got raises is actually harmful to a school. Think about that one for just a second. The whole point of a school is to educate kids. And yet there's a whole group of people, Ogden Driscoll included, that think that somehow paying teachers is somehow hurting education. I mean, these are the things that are absolute. I mean, it is the absurdity in our political system. And, my friends, that's why I try so hard on this program to tell you the truth. And whatever David Hill says, well, people who are brutally honest just like being brutal more than that. No, I like saying it how it is. And if you noticed, I caught him in a couple of areas, right, about the Wyoming Business Council, and I'm glad I asked him that question on abortion. But and here's a follow-up to a story I think I brought you. I think it was last Friday. But the San Francisco Giants, the baseball team, where their players wrote a Bible passage on their hat when they were forced to wear pride jerseys. Well, now Major League Baseball is walking that back and saying they were wrong to chastise those players and warn them. Well, of course, because it's the First Amendment. But I've got a piece of video here from Josh Hawley, and it's actually on a Fox News program. Let's see here. Where is it? No, that's all Josh Durrell stuff. Had enough of him yesterday. Here we go. Josh Hawley, Major League Baseball. Take a listen.
Baseball gave us a great Father's Day moment this weekend in Texas. Some young Texas Rangers fans joined their dads on the field. It's an incredible display. The meaning, the spirit, the hope of Father's Day. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, the national pastime found itself in the middle of a national debate. Giants players sparked controversy after putting a Bible verse on their Pride Night hats. Reports said Major League Baseball warned the players they may have violated league policy, sparking a debate.
I think if you took a vote amongst the players, if they were wanting to wear this or that, it would have been a different outcome of what would have been said. For me, we alter our uniforms all the time with numbers or somebody that's passed away. And I love it that these guys show the blessings that the Lord has given them to be out there on that field. That's the way it was for me.
The DOJ, as you know, announced a religious discrimination probe into Major League Baseball, at the time saying the Civil Rights Act prohibits Major League Baseball and its franchisees from unreasonably burdening the rights of players with religious objections to serving as the league's vehicle for a pro-pride message. Federal law is clear. Employers must modify their uniform requirements to reasonably accommodate their employees' exercise of religion. Now, Major League Baseball appears to be blaming the Giants for the controversy.
Oh,
the commissioner telling Senator Josh Hawley the Giants players were allowed to wear the hats with the biblical references for the entire game. After the game concluded, my office issued a routine oral warning about the uniform policy violation. Unfortunately, it was issued before we became aware of the Giants' lapse in communication. The players were neither fined nor disciplined, nor will they ever be.
So we didn't, we didn't fine them. We didn't sanction them in any way. So everything's okay. And it was the Giants' fault, except that it was Major League Baseball that came out immediately after the the Giants players wore those hats. But here's what Senator Hawley had to say about it.
That's Senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley, joins me now. Senator, it looks like passing the buck to the San Francisco Giants from Major League Baseball.
Well, it looks like they're admitting that they're wrong, Will, which is exactly the case. I mean, the commissioner admitted in that letter that he should not have warned, quote unquote, the players that, in fact, they are entitled to not wear the uniforms. They are entitled to express their religious beliefs. And he said, as you just quoted, no player will ever be disciplined or fined for their religious beliefs.
All right. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's what the senator says, but he's exactly right that that you cannot infringe on a person's religious beliefs or the freedom of speech or, frankly, the Second Amendment or any of those things, even though there are politicians everywhere that would like nothing more than to do that. All right, my friends, that'll do it for today's installment of the program. Tomorrow on the show, we're supposed to have candidate for governor, Mr. Brent Bien, is going to join us. I don't know. Oh, yeah. And good news. Agent 29 is back. So we'll be back in the downtown studio tomorrow. Pretty excited about that. It's been a while without my producer. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about his exploits and hopefully we're talking to gubernatorial candidate Mr. Brent Bien tomorrow on the program. So that'll do it for today's installment of the broadcast. Have a good rest of your afternoon. Don't forget about the podcast. If you missed today's show, I'm going to replay the David Hill interview, so we'll do that. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns, my friends, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics. See you tomorrow.